This is going to be Beyond the Huddle, first episode. We're going to go over some rankings. We're going to start with the AFC. Next pod, we'll do the NFC. All right, so should we start in a specific division? You guys have any specific divisions you want to start? I say we start in the easiest division, just so then it's less controversial. I would probably say AFC West is the least controversial out of them all. But yes. So we all have the Raiders winning this division, correct?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Oh, okay.
All right, so I think it's pretty obvious we got the Chiefs easily winning the division. I actually have them really high this year. Their schedule didn't look all that tough. I have them at 14-3. I don't see anyone beating them for the 1 seed in the AFC either, but we'll get into that later. Patrick Mahomes, obvious reason. They got more wide receiver depth. I think the only worry might be a little bit of defense because they lost Snead, but I still don't see them falling out of the top 10 in defense. But I'd like to see what you guys think. Obviously, Chiefs first are winning that division. What do you guys think?
I got the Chiefs as well. I got 13-4 just because there's a chance if we already had the first seed locked up that Mahomes then won't even play the last game. And then I know there's always a couple trap games every year. Every team has those teams that they should destroy but never do. But I do have them in the first seed as well. I think Mahomes is going to have an MVP type year. This is the best all-around receiver room I think he's ever had. And then you still have Kelsey, you still have Pacheco, who can finish as a top 10 running back this year. And I do love our defense still, even without Snead. Our defensive back depth is huge. And people are going to see a lot more of McDuffie, I think, this year because he was still getting overshadowed by Snead last year, even though his numbers were just as good. But I do have the Chiefs as my number 1 seed in the whole NFL.
Same here. I had the Chiefs winning the division. I had them going 15-2. I had them dropping one trap game, and then probably another, like Trey said, at the end of the season. If Mahomes doesn't play, we end up losing the game or something like that. I think this is the best roster we've had probably since our first Super Bowl run with Tyreek and Sam Watkins and all that. Plus, our defense is just as good, if not going to be better. I know the loss of Snead everyone's freaking out about, but based off of who we drafted and who we were able to bring in free agency, I think that we're going to be just as good, if maybe not a little bit better, because everyone's going to be kind of doubting our secondary just a tad bit. But, I think it's going to be a great year for us, and I don't. The sky's the limit.
I think the improvement of our pass rush too is what's going to help our secondary out so much more.
100%.
You can tell a lot of our guys work with Tomba in the offseason just by overtraining camp. All the moves that they're doing.
Oh yeah, Felix had definitely showed up.
Felix Karlaftis is playing with a different motor. He said this year he's going to try to be a top 10 defensive end in football. I was like, I can see it.
I can do that too, easily. But yeah, so I got the Chiefs as well. I think the consensus is around 13 to 14 wins, and I can see that. I think that they will be battle-tested to start off the season with Baltimore and Cincinnati back-to-back. But I think, as the season goes on, I think it gets easier. I think we probably have one of the easiest schedules post-bye week. And I think by that point, we'll start clicking on all cylinders. And, I think it's great news that we haven't heard anything on the Rice front. Clark Hunt doesn't think, he hasn't heard nothing, so he doesn't think he's getting suspended anytime soon. So we may have him for the season because I don't think his trial is till December. So it may be another.
I think they set some up. So there's a deadline in August where even if something happens, the NFL can't do anything until the following.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be like another Alvin Kamara situation.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I think it's going to be like the Kamara situation where it kind of gets prolonged until it's a next year kind of thing.
Right, because they're still sorting out all the details. So all that to say that Rice being there is definitely going to be big for the offense. Worthy and Brown eating up downfield, and Hardman too, honestly. And then Kelsey, Rice, and hopefully Tony underneath. Whether they keep him in the slot or at running back, either or. But
they just said something about possibly running him at running back, the third down back out of the backfield. I think that'd be a little sneaky.
So I think that like everybody else has said, I think this is going to be probably equivalent, if not better, to the 2019 offense that we had. I think that the league honestly should be really scared. I think they had their chance last year, and they still let it slip in between. And I don't think that the defense will fall off much at all. I don't think that we'll be able to limit every single team under 30 points like we did. But I still think it's the top 10, top 5 unit. And I don't think that losing Snead either will be a huge loss. I think McDuffie's going to step outside and be great. You got year 2 of Connor. You still got Justin Reed. Najee Johnson was getting first team reps in camp last year before injury. And then you got year 3 of Jalen Watson and Josh Williams. And, I mean, they still stepped up and played great.
Lost for Kamal Hayden, too.
Yeah, Kamal Hayden and then Jaden Hicks, too. So I think we got one of the best safety groups in the league. So I think that we're loaded all around. I think our biggest question for this season is who steps in at left tackle and how they play. So whether it's Kingsley or Wanye Morris, they're battling that out through camp right now, getting everything out and just getting better every day. But I think that, especially early on, that's going to be important to, how successful this offense can be.
Yeah, I think definitely Kingsley starting, it's going to be a little bit tougher, a little bit of a slower start first because he's a rookie.
Right.
And I know he's played at a high level in college football, but he hasn't played at this high of a level, especially with the 2 first games of the season where Baltimore and Cincinnati both have good pass rush.
Right.
It's going to be – it's definitely going to battle test those guys, like you said.
For sure.
But I don't know. I think Kingsley's the obvious start, in my opinion. I wasn't too fond of Wanye last year. I was high on him when we drafted him, but after seeing a little bit he did play, I think he's definitely not ready to start.
Right.
But I mean, I just hope that Kingsley turns out to be everything we're hyping him up to be.
I think that Wanye, I think they have plans for him at guard. I think that depending on the futures of Trey Smith and Joe Tooney, which it's big to have Joe Tooney back. I'm glad he's practicing already.
Yeah.
That's going to help Kingsley, or if they put Wanye out there for this year, out a lot. But I think that they're preparing to have Wanye take over one of those guard spots because, I mean, he's athletic, can move, great in the run game, and he doesn't have to have that much responsibility during pass sets. So I think they're prepping him for that, and I think they took Kingsley in the second round, knowing that that's going to be their left tackle for the next 5 to 10 years. So
yeah, I think we can all say that the Chiefs are going to win that division. But also, I wanted to throw in, I know you brought it up a couple of times. You said their first 2 games are going to be the Ravens and the Bengals. Out of those 2 teams, which team do you think brings them the biggest threat? Which team do you think actually might, if they were to lose one of those first 2 games, which team do you think it would be? Because I personally, I don't think the Bengals, I think the Bengals might be the biggest threat later on in the season. I think early on in the season, they might stumble a little bit. Losing Mixon might be a little bit of a challenge at the beginning. I think early on in the season is when you want to face them. I think the Ravens would probably be the most ready on the first game, but I don't see them losing to either of them that early on in the season. But if I had to choose one, I'd probably say Ravens.
And if I had to pick, it's Ravens as well. We've always, we can play the Bengals. We don't play them great in the regular season. But every game that's been earlier in the year, it's always been a closer matchup, and we play them better than we are in the back end. Like you said, the Bengals are a second-half team, in my opinion. They heat up, and when they heat up, they're solid. The Chiefs usually start off the season hot every year. But if I had to pick one, it would be Ravens.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go with the Ravens, too. Having Derrick Henry on that roster is really scary when you match it up with someone like Lamar Jackson with his running ability, too. So I think that two-headed monster is going to be really scary for the league in general, not just for the Chiefs. Okay. But it still doesn't bother me as much because our running defense last year was so solid. But yeah, if there's any teams that we would drop 1-2 out of those 2 games, it'd definitely be the Ravens, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think if we were to drop one in those first 2, I think it would be Baltimore. Rather than Cincinnati, because I like Trey said, Cincinnati is a second half team, and they usually start out typically slow the first couple games, and then they heat up towards the end of the season. And I think Baltimore is just going to come out with that chip on their shoulder opening night, and want to get their payback to prove to themselves.
Flowers with a big jump this year.
Yeah, and I feel like Bateman's going to have a big year. That's to be
It
decided.
depends on Lamar.
It depends on Lamar.
Yeah.
And I mean, how far Baltimore goes ultimately depends on Lamar, regardless of if they have Derrick Henry or not. Because I mean, you have to be able to win football games with your arm. Because come playoff time, I mean, it's a different ball game, and I mean, you're going to have to make a play, other than the running game or using your legs, to win, especially against teams like Kansas City that have that experience. And you can't make no mistakes against them. But I think that they'll drop opening night if they were to lose. But I would much rather play Baltimore come playoff time than Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think the Bengals might pose the bigger threat later on in the season, especially come playoff time. But yeah, right now I'd say the Ravens would be the scarier one on those first two games. I don't want to get too in depth into the Ravens because obviously we got to rank them later. Or the Bengals. So we'll just continue with this division. I do have the Chargers second. I put them at 8 and 9. I think that they still have Justin Herbert. They lost a lot of talent in the offseason. But if Herbert's healthy and they have a brand new coach, I think they'll have a little bit more, some new ideas, some new excitement around that team. And I do think they have one of the easier schedules in the NFL. So I do have them at 8 and 9. I still don't have them as a playoff team, but I think that this will be a win for them this season because with a new head coach, how bad they were last year, I think 8 and 9 will probably give them a little bit of something to be excited about for the next few seasons.
I agree. I am at 8-9 as well in the 2 seed Chargers. I love Justin Herbert. I still think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I do like the Harbaugh with him. That head coach and quarterback duo I think is going to be solid for a couple years. But I do have him at 8-9, finishing 2 and missing the playoffs. But I do agree.
I had the Chargers at 2 as well. I actually had them going 9 and 8. I don't have them at least a winning season. I don't have them in the playoffs, but I do love Herbert. Like Trey said, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league as well. I'm iffy on Harbaugh making that jump to the NFL again. I just don't know how much faith I want to put in him. I think him staying in Michigan might have been a better idea for him. But I don't know. I love Herbert, and if there's anyone that's going to will that team to a winning record and possibly a playoff berth, it's going to be him, and it has to be him.
So I actually have the Raiders second. I don't. They're not making the playoffs. I don't see nobody else in that division making the playoffs. But I think that the additions that the Raiders have made, because the Raiders do have a solid team. They're competitive outside of their quarterback. But I mean, Gardner Minshew is, he's a somewhat good quarterback. He's going to win you a couple games. I think the majority of the games that they win will be because of their defense. Adding Christian Wilkins to that defense with Max Crosby, I think, is just going to be a lot for some teams.
Yeah, clearly their defense is what's going to keep them in ball games all year. And I know Minshew finds a way to be relevant every year, so I'm sure that he'll find a way to will them to a few wins. I just
Love you.
Dude, for sure.
I don't know.
But yeah,
The Raiders are they're too trash always for me to have them.
You still have, and I mean, you still have
a wild take.
you still got Devontae Adams. I mean, you got Jacoby Myers in there. You got Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. I mean, they have pieces. It's just they don't have the quarterback that's going to take them, into playoff or contention or anything like that. They still need some more pieces.
I will say, if you flip quarterbacks, put Herbert on that team, I can see them being a really, really good team.
Oh yeah, I really think they're competitive. They're not going to go anywhere
quarterback
until they
plays
get
a lot.
quarterback. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, Minshew can win you, 6 or 7.
We'll see.
8 games. It just depends. It depends on schedule.
Just hot take. You got the first hot take of the day. I'll tell you that one.
I don't think that they have the second seed locked up just because their schedule is one of the toughest ones I think out there. They do have to face a lot of good teams from last year that probably have pretty high win totals this year. I know that when I was looking it up, they were like the 25th easiest schedule, so that means that one of the harder schedules. I think it's because of the win totals that are projected from those teams that they do play. So I just it makes it difficult for me to have them second, but I guess I can see it. They got a defense.
Crazy.
Lastly, I mean not lastly, I guess. Do we all have the Raiders third? Because I have the Raiders third.
I have the Broncos.
You have the Broncos above, and that's wild to me.
He's got the Chargers.
I had the Broncos.
I like Bo Nix. I like that offense with Bo Nix and Javonte Williams in the backfield still. And Cortland Sutton, I think, is going to have a better year now with that better quarterback play than what Russell Wilson played last year. He wasn't looking downfield for Sutton. Bo Nix in college, even with Troy Franklin, and he's on Denver as well, he liked to go downfield. He liked to look to go downfield, and that's what Sutton's good at, and Troy Franklin. I don't think they're going to be great. I got the Broncos at 6-11, so it's not a great year at all. But I just think it's going to be a fun year for Bo Nix, and you're going to see struggles with Sean Payton, but I think it's going to be all right.
Yeah, I had the Broncos at 3 as well. I have them going 7-10. I like the addition of Bo Nix. He's a little bit more battle tested because he's an older guy. He played 5 or 6 years in college. So he's coming in 24, 25 for his rookie season. So he's going to have a little bit more knowledge, I would say, for the quarterback position in the NFL. He knows what he's getting into, and I think Sean Payton is probably a better viable option for a head coach for him to develop into a decent starting quarterback. I don't think he's going to be anything crazy special.
Yeah.
But if Javonte Williams can stay healthy and their defense does Denver defense things like they usually do, I think that they have the possibility to be a team that might be on the rise in the next coming years. But this year I still have them going 7-10.
Okay, so the reason I have the Chargers third is because I need to see, with Harbaugh being there, they need to figure out what their identity is going to be, because we know Harbaugh coming from Michigan, their run, play action.
Old OC.
Yeah, so they're bringing a lot of Michigan, to this team, and so we know the Chargers for, wanting to throw the ball. I mean, you had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jared Everett on that team, Austin Eckler on that team. They were willing to spread the ball out and throw it. So, but my question is how much is Jim Harbaugh's system going to hinder what Justin Herbert does best? Because are they just going to, because they have to find their identity, with Harbaugh. So are they going to limit, Justin Herbert to only throwing a certain amount of time a game because they want to run it? They want to be, run the football, but then play action? Or are they going to be like, okay, let's get into some sets and let's throw this football? Also, you're losing both of your receivers. You lost your tight end. You lost your running back. And you lost your starting center, Corey Lynn, who retired. So you're having to fix a lot of positions on that offensive side. And, I mean, even just from camp right now, it doesn't look like you're getting a jump from Quentin Johnson at all. So you're relying probably on Ladd McConkey to step in and be, your best receiver and your safety blanket for, Justin Herbert until, you figure out what you have. And then, they brought in Dobbins, they brought in Gus, they brought in a lot of Ravens running backs because they're wanting to run the ball. So I just wonder what that's going to look like, on that front. They have to figure out the balance of that team. And I don't think that, they're going to have that figured out year one. So that's why I have the Raiders above them. Right now, I still think that, Herbert's going to will them to a couple games and all that stuff. But, I mean, they still have stuff to figure out on defense, too. And, I mean, Khalil Mack's not getting any older. You don't know, what Joey Bosa is going to do. And then after that, I mean, you really have Derwin James. And so they're still, building out that team. So I don't see them being, up there in terms of wins just until they figure that stuff out.
I don't see them. Oh, go ahead. I mean, I don't see them that high in wins, but I do see them above the Raiders. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can see
me too.
It's high.
Me too.
It's high.
Yeah, I have the Raiders third at 6-11. I don't think they're a good football team like ever, but and they're super reliant on Devontae. They're super reliant on that defense. I mean, you got to have a true number one that can give them the ball, though. That's the question. And I know Fred has said it that they're just missing a quarterback. Really, they have one of the tougher schedules. So my fourth, though, I do have the Broncos. I have them at like 4 or 5 wins. I put 4-13. I don't think they're going to win that many games. They have a tough schedule. I see them starting the year off 0-4. And you never know. They haven't decided if they're for sure going to go with Bo Nix to start. I think he's the top guy, but if they throw out Zach Wilson, they're done. I'm telling you, if they throw Zach Wilson's ass out there, they're done. So if that's your two options, I don't see a lot of potential for wins. Again, they're in rebuild time, so I'm not gonna say like in the future they're not gonna be good, maybe next year, but I don't see them having a good year.
Yeah, I think we're there too. I mean, they're just gonna have to figure out how they're gonna move forward, who they're gonna move forward with. Um, you know, hopefully they don't put Zach Wilson out there. I mean, you don't take. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that think it was controversial to take Bo Nix as high as he was, but that's just how the quarterback run went. So you had to take him there. But Bo Nix is up there in age, so you're gonna, and that's Sean Payton guy. I mean, through that whole process, everybody kind of had the idea that Bo Nix was Sean Payton guy. And then you got to figure out the rest of your offense. You got to build the rest of that out. I just don't think there's very many proven guys. I mean, you got Cortland there. You don't know what your running back room is. Is it going to be Javonte or is it going to be Jalil McLaughlin or P. Ryan? Who they don't know who they're going to have there yet. So it's just putting those pieces in there, and I think they're probably going to be trying to eye another high pick to get another really good player on either side. I mean, they could take BPA at any spot. No, I mean that's just where they're at right now. So yeah, I see them last as well.
Are we wrapping up the AFC West then?
Yep.
We both had the Raiders at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. I knew you guys had them at the bottom.
Yeah.
What's you guys' record for them?
I had them going 5-12.
5-12, second worst in the AFC.
Yeah, I have them around the 6-7 mark, so not too far off. But
yeah,
they could go either way.
All right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the next easiest division that I felt in the AFC, which I went to AFC South.
Yeah,
I think that one was pretty clear cut. Texans taking that one. They should run away with the division. CJ Stroud looks like the real deal. I don't see why he wouldn't be. They have a top receiving room now. They've improved that running back with Mixon. They've improved their defense. And low-key, they might be one of the biggest threats to the Chiefs. At least the Chiefs dynasty. I mean, they might be the next dynasty to take over. And so that's why I have winning the division. I put them at 12-5. For the second, I went with the Colts. I think if Anthony Richardson is taking the leap that he's supposed to take, I know he was injured last year, but they ran all last year with Gardner Minshew and still were a fringe playoff team. They were almost there. So if they just throw in Anthony Richardson in there, I think that it'll improve them a little bit. I still don't have them as high or as many wins as last year because I think they ended with 10 last year. I had them at 9-8 this year. The defense still may be a little bit of a problem, but I do love Shane Steichen, and I think Anthony Richardson under Shane Steichen will do pretty well. I think they also have a relatively easy schedule, but the Jags I put right below them. I had them at 8-9. This is the most weapons that Lawrence has had his whole career. I think that it's tough when they have the strength of schedule that they have, though. Their schedule is a little bit tougher, and they still don't have a secondary, so their defense is still probably going to give up a decent amount of points. I think they have the potential to be a surprise team, though. I think that if they're as good as they started out last year, I think those last 6-7 games, whatever it was, where they kind of just fell apart, including that playoff loss, I think that kind of hinders your viewpoints on them to start this year. And then the last team I had the Titans. I think the Titans could be a really surprise team, though. I think if Levis can be that guy and show that he's that guy, I think that they will be a pretty solid team. They have a brand new coach. They have a bunch of new weapons. They have, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd. They have Spears and Pollard. I think that they have a lot of offensive guys. And then, like I said, as long as he is a viable option, I think they might actually be like a trap team for some games. But their schedule is kind of tough, so I have them at 5. I have them at 6-11 at the bottom of the division still.
I have the same 4 pretty much. I got the Texans at 12-5. I haven't finished yet 2 or 3 seed because I'm a tiebreaker with another team. It's just how it ends up falling out. And like you said, they have the best receiving room in the NFL. They have so much depth at receiver, and with Stroud, and then you got Mixon in the backfield. Their offense is going to be arguably a top offense in the NFL, probably number 1 at times. And number 2, I have the Colts, but I do have them making the playoffs still at 10-7 as a 6th seed. I'm a really big fan of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in that backfield. And when it comes to the red zone, it's going to be read option all day, and who are you going to want to stop? They're both big runners. They're both going to try to run through people. And I think Pittman and A.D. Mitchell are going to have pretty good years. Another good year this year. Pittman, kind of curious how it's going to be because the first couple games, Anthony Richardson wasn't looking a lot at him, but he was also looking to run first before passing. And I think now after the injuries, he might change that around to where he don't have to depend as much on his legs. 3 are the Jaguars at 8-9, like you said. Pretty much the same thing as you. Trevor Lawrence, it all depends on him. And I do think Brian Thomas and Kirk have some pretty good years this year. And then I got the Titans at 6-11 to round it up.
So I same thing as you guys pretty much. I had Texans winning the division. I had them going 14-3. I think they're going to take a big jump. I know they had a good season last year and their playoff team last year. I think this is going to be the year they take that big jump and they're a 2 seed in the playoffs. Like you guys said, probably the best wide receiver room in the whole league. The addition of Joe Mixon and a couple of the defensive weapons that they got as well with what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter's going to really be nice off the edge for them. So yeah, I think they're definitely going to be the biggest threat to the Chiefs come playoff time. And shit, we play them in the regular season too, so that might be a game that we end up dropping. Then I had the Colts, like Trace, going 10-7. I had them as the 6th or 7th seed, kind of interchangeable. I like Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor too. I'm a huge Shane Steichen fan. I think he's a really good offensive mastermind. He was always great in Philly, and he proved that it doesn't really matter who he's got at quarterback. He's still going to find a way to scheme guys open and get some wins for his guys. Last year with Gardner Minshew. I like it. The only thing that I am iffy on with them is their defense. I know they got a couple of good pieces, but I'm still iffy on their defense. Outside of, DeForest Buckner's old, but I don't know. And then I had the Jags at 3, going 9-8. I like all the new weapons they got. If they don't find out that Gabe Davis is not what all these people are hyping him up to be, then it's going to be their downfall. And it really just depends on if Trevor Lawrence wants to show up day in and day out. I like Doug Peterson too. I always thought Doug Peterson was a good coach. But yeah, I had him going 9-8, and then bottom of the league, bottom of that division, I had Titans with another 5 or 6 win team. I'm not sold on Will Levis. I never liked him in college. I never liked him in the pros. I think he got off to a hot start because no one had film on him. To be honest, I think it was a no film kind of thing, just like the Tommy DeVito situation when Tommy DeVito came in and played for the Giants. But he's got a lot of weapons, and if he doesn't come out and prove that he can play with the big dogs, then I think it's going to be we're looking for another quarterback or another defensive player for him. So that's how I had this house shaping up.
Man, some shots fired at Will Levis with the Tommy DeVito comparison, huh?
You're comparing those two together, man.
I'm not high on Will Levis, but I do think if he is even a viable option, that they will be all right. I don't think that they'll be a great team. I don't have faith in him, but I do think that they have a decent roster around him.
Yeah, so I got the same as you, Tyler. Texans. Of course, I think that's the consensus that, they're going to be the biggest threats to the Chiefs this year and for years after. I mean, C.J. Stroud's only going to be in his second year, but I mean, if you go out and go get Stephon Diggs and Daniil Hunter, they believe in him. They're trying to win now.
Yeah.
You go out and get Joe Mixon, you still got Dameon Pierce there. Dalton Schultz, they brought him back, and I mean they got a lot of pieces. They're trying to win right now. They believe in C.J. Stroud that much, and I mean honestly, after last year, I don't blame them. So, I mean they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I love DeMeco Ryans as the head coach. That is a coach that players are going to want to play for. So even as the years go on, you're going to have big name players wanting to go there just because of DeMeco Ryans.
I feel like that whole division's got really good head coaches.
Oh yeah. But second, I do have the Colts. Just like everybody else said, high power offense. I mean that's what's going to drive them to a lot of their wins. Like you said, their defense is questionable. That's why. And I have the Jaguars third as well. So they're kind of interchangeable. I just think that the Colts are going to have them on tiebreakers on head-to-head. But that can go either way because, I mean, I think that the Colts secondary is going to burn them in some of those games.
It's going to be high-scoring games that they're
involved.
Yeah,
for sure. Just until they can find somebody that can prove themselves out there, I think that they're going to drop a couple just because of them. But Jaguars at 3, I mean, it really just all depends on Trevor Lawrence for me. I mean, you got the pieces, and I think they have a solid defense. They start off pretty good for the most part every year. It's just how they finish, and can Trevor Lawrence stay healthy? So that's really dependent on how their season is going to go. If he can't stay healthy, they'll be right there in probably third place. If not, they'll probably slip farther because I don't think the Titans are much farther off either. I don't think that Will Levis is going to have a spectacular year, but I want to see that he's viable starting quarterback, and I think that Bill Callahan stepping in with the Bengals' old offensive coordinator stepping in, giving them Calvin Ridley and still have D-Hop there. You got your running backs, and, I mean, they made improvements on the offensive line, along with, adding already to a good defense. They definitely had the pieces around them, but, I mean, I'm not expecting much from them this year. I think they could be sneaky, and they'll trap a few people, but, I mean, you're just wanting to see, one, how this system works with Bill Callahan, and can Will Levis be a starting quarterback going forward for this team? And I think that they'll figure that out this year. So,
yeah, I agree. That actually turned out to be easier than the AFC West.
Yeah,
about 10 minutes. That's what I was thinking we should do for each one. 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think the other two are probably very difficult. I mean, as in what order they go in.
There's going to be more controversy in the AFC North.
Yeah.
I agree.
Save that one for last just because.
Okay. So start with the AFC East then?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go with the East.
Anybody want to start this time or you want me to keep going?
Go ahead.
I'll start.
Yeah, okay.
Trent, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, so for next, we're going to do is the AFC East, which it's going to be a battle for the top 3 teams in that division.
Yeah.
But I do have the Dolphins winning that division. I think as long as Tyreek Hill stays healthy, I get to it. It's got paid. But they still have Waddle. They have Achane and Most. Like, they have a high-powered offense, too. And if Tyreek Hill gets the ball, he's going to score. Plain and simple. You have the Tua Tyreek stack in fantasy. It helped you out a lot. Like, if he's getting the ball, that's all you got to worry about.
You need more than that, though. You need more than that.
I still think they're going to finish 11-6 as a 4 seed. From 4 on, really, in my eyes, in the AFC, is interchangeable. It all depends on how the season goes around the beginning and middle, to me. The number 2 seed, I got the Bills at 10-7. I have them as my 7 seed, just making it in there. And it's all depends on Josh Allen and his receiving core with Keon Coleman and Shakir. I think that if Coleman steps up to be a decent option for them, they'll be all right. Because they still have Kincaid and Dawson Knox in the middle at tight end. They still have a good tight end group. They still have a good defense. And Josh Allen somehow always finds a way to win games when he shouldn't win the games at all. So I'm going to go ahead and still put them at the 2. And then at 3, I got the Jets at 10-7 as well. I have them as the same record. But it all depends on how Aaron Rodgers comes back. I could see them being worse. I could see them being better. And at his age, coming off that injury, it's going to be a big test for them. And their offense is still really good. They still have, arguably, I still think, a top 2 defense in the NFL.
Easily.
But I think Breece Hall is going to be the number 1 running back in the NFL. They're going to depend a lot on him. And I think Garrett Wilson makes a big jump, but I think it's all going to depend on Aaron Rodgers, how he can come back from this injury. Because if he's screwed, who they got to put in? Jordan Travis?
I don't know who they're back. I think they signed a veteran.
Because they really don't have much besides him. And if he can't even be 70-75% of what he was in Green Bay, then they're going to have a hard time.
They're cooked.
Then I have the Patriots as the worst team in the AFC at 4-13. I think Brissett starts. I think Drake May ends up coming in, though. And I think Polk and Baker are going to be pretty solid options at receiver for them. And I've heard Gerard Mayo already talk big about Baker and how he's already looking as the true number 1 or 2 for that team. But I think they hold on to Drake May until they figure out if the receivers can actually play decent. They're not just going to throw him in. But that's not the type of coach he said he wants to be. He's going to roll with Brissett. And then if he sees if he sees Polk and Baker going off, then he'll put the better arm in Drake May in and see how the offense will actually look.
So I have mine shaping up a little bit differently. I still have Miami winning that division. I think it's kind of, to me, it's a little bit more clear cut that that's the better team in that division to win. I had them going 11-6, so they're gonna be a playoff team. I had them in the 4 or 5 range seeding wise in the playoffs. I like Tyreek. I like their weapons, I should say. I've never been a big fan of Tua. I think he got completely overpaid, but with all the weapons that he has, that team still should be good. And I think the only thing that's going to hold them back again, kind of like the Colts, is their defense. I'm not sold on their defense. I didn't like how they drafted, especially when it came to the defensive players that they drafted. I wasn't sold on that. But yeah, Mike McDaniels is a hell of a coach, and I think that he'll definitely help that team get to another playoff run, or a playoff berth, I should say. At my 2 seed for that division, I actually had the Jets. I had the Jets going 10-7. It was kind of interchangeable. I had the Jets and the Bills both going 10-7 with kind of a tiebreaker thing between the 2 of them. I am wholeheartedly a diehard Aaron Rodgers fan. I always have been, so there's a little bit of a bias there. But I think if Aaron Rodgers comes back, even like Trey said, 75% to 80% of what he was in Green Bay after that Achilles toe. Yeah. I think that him having Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, a decent offensive line, and a phenomenal defense to help back his offensive play, I think that they might be a fringe playoff team. And then once I had the Bills at the 3 seed because I'm not sold on that offense whatsoever outside of Josh Allen. I think their running back room is weak. I think their offensive line needs improvement, and their wide receiver room is pretty subpar outside of maybe Keon Coleman, and he's a rookie. Their tight ends are good. Kincaid and Knox are a good duo, and their defense, they lost a lot of guys in the offseason on their defense. So I think they'll maybe be a fringe playoff team as well. Just depends on how the season shapes up with them and the Jets. And then I had the Patriots as one of the worst teams in the league as well. I had them at 3 or 4 wins. I liked Drake May coming out of the draft. I think that he's a good arm talent guy, but he has a lot of indecisiveness with his throws and a lot of mistakes because of that, mental errors. I like the Javon Baker pick. I think he was a really good value pick for them, but they have a lot of holes they need to fill, and if they don't fill them, they're not going to be anything special.
All right, so I have the Jets winning the division, and this is like both of them have said. If you get Aaron Rodgers at least 75%, I think they win the division. You only have a year or 2 left to Aaron Rodgers. So you supply them with the pieces. Now, regarding the health of Tyron Smith and all that. They made those additions to the offensive line, and I mean they still have good interior offensive linemen. And then they got John Simpson for the Ravens. They're starting right tackle, and then they drafted Fashanu. So they have reinforcements on that offensive line, and if they're healthy, it's going to be a good unit. It's not going to be an elite unit, but it's going to be good enough. You still got Brees Hall. He's going to take a lot of pressure off of Aaron Rodgers if he's 75-80%. And you still have the playmaker. You still got Garrett Wilson. You still got a number one receiver. The offense is going to be able to put up points. And, I mean, if we really look at the Jets, if we looked at them last year, I mean, that defense is elite. That's a top 5 defense. And, I mean, it just didn't look like that at times because you had, Zach Wilson making them go back on the field every 2 seconds. So, I mean, they're going to be tired to give up points. But I think that, that defense can hold up against anybody. That's a dangerous defense. And I think that, they're going to win a majority of those games in the division, especially come late in the season. And that's why I have the Dolphins number 2. I mean, anybody I talk to, the Tua deal, and we'll get into that in another podcast, but it takes away – I don't like it because it takes away from team building. And I don't like how the Dolphins really address their offseason. Teron Armstead is old. And I mean, they drafted Patrick Paul, but you lost, I believe, both of your starting guards. I know you lost Robert Hunt. Yeah. Connor Williams is gone. Yeah. So, and I get it. I know that their scheme is quick and get the ball out, but it's not going to always be like that. Especially if you're going, head to head for the division playing the Jets, because the Jets have the secondary and just the defense to, give Miami problems. Especially pressure. And I don't think Tua is going to play well come December, and I don't think he's good under pressure. And I think that, around that time of year, if there's tiebreakers involved, I don't see the Dolphins winning. I don't like their defense either. You lost Christian Wilkins and then really replace them. You got Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb coming off major injuries. You don't know how they're going to come back from that. I believe you lost Jerome Baker too. And you lost a corner, and you got Kader Kohu as your corner 2 because you got rid of Xavier Howard as well. So, they spent so much time adding to the receiver room, drafting 2 receivers and getting Odell, that they haven't addressed anything else. And I think that later in the year, it's going to kill them, once the stakes get higher and, they got film on them and know how they play.
My big thing is you can't rely on just Javon Holland,
right, and Jalen
Ramsey to bolster that defense,
right,
to be a top 15 defense.
Because you're expecting Jalen Ramsey to play what he was when everywhere. Jacksonville made the run
everywhere,
or when he was with the Rams. You're expecting that Jalen Ramsey, and I think Jalen Ramsey is still a great corner, but I don't think that he's going to be that. I don't think he can take on that much responsibility, especially, with how stacked the AFC is. Yeah. But I got them at 2, and I got Buffalo at 3. Just like everybody else said, questions about that wide receiver room. You're going to have to figure that out. I personally think that offense needs to be featured by Dalton Kincaid. You need to run that offense from Dalton Kincaid. And then they need to continue to use James Cook because they need a run game. Because a lot of the Bills' problems is that they rely on Josh Allen so much. So whenever it comes late game and, Josh Allen is having to play hero ball, that's when the turnovers come. And that's what loses them games at times is Josh Allen's decision making whenever he has to play hero ball. So having that, they need balance. Now I know James Cook isn't a workhorse. That's why I don't know if they brought in another back or not.
He might even be a regular horse.
But they just need to utilize the running game more. But really, what it comes down to with the Bills is, they're paying for their decision to pay Von Miller for 6 years at 33 years old, and having to shed completely their whole secondary because they couldn't afford anybody. You got Matt Milano coming off a major knee injury. You're hoping for Kyrie Elam and Rasul Douglas to hold down your secondary, and you lost Micah Hyde this year. So, I mean, they're paying for that, and I think that's going to show a lot in the big games that they play this year. So, I got them third, and I got the Patriots fourth, just like everybody else. This is just figure out what you have. Figure out what you have, develop. I mean, I think they're going to be a good team in a couple years, but you got to figure out what you have and then just keep adding pieces. I mean, they still need to shore up that offensive line, and I think that's going to be important finding that franchise left tackle, whether that's in a year or two, and it's just the development of Drake May. But this is just a fill out. You got a new coach, new scheme, new everything. So, I mean, it's expected.
I just hope they don't give up too early. Like they actually try to build at least. Give Mayo at least 3 years. You can't just give him 1.5 years and give up.
But I think with Gerard Mayo being in charge, I think that's the game plan. I think Gerard Mayo is actually going to be a guy who's going to let some of these guys develop. It's not going to be a Belichick thing where it's like, if you don't play good, then fuck off. You're not playing for me, kind of thing. Right.
You just got to be better than Mac Jones,
dude.
Or, don't surround Mac Jones after he made the playoffs with 3 defensive coordinators to run your offense.
Yeah. All right, so I'm more on the Jets, like Fred is. I'm more on them winning the division than anybody else. I have them coming in at 11-6. I know they're kind of dependent on Rodgers being healthy and being what he was his last year in Green Bay. Hopefully he can still be that, and if he is, I don't see why they can't win a division. I think that they did shore up some things on their mediocre offensive line. They did fill some holes there, but their defense is still solid. They have a defensive-minded coach. Their defense kept them in so many games last year, and if they didn't have Zach Wilson starting, they win a lot of those games. And so I think that with Aaron Rodgers, that is going to change a lot of things. And they have a rather easy schedule. Their schedule, I know that what I go off of is the projected win totals to see like the strength of schedule. And so it is based on straight projections, but they did have like the 4th easiest schedule based on projections of win totals of their opponents. So I think that does put them in front of the Bills, who I have second. I have the Bills second in the division just because they have Josh Allen. They have a top 3 quarterback still. I still think their defense is pretty strong. They get Milano back. I'm not for sure if they are going to, be as good as they have been, and they could easily drop early on and be, this could be a down year for them, but I just don't like the Dolphins very much. I don't have any faith in Tua. I think that Tua and Tyreek, yes, they're a good combo, but I have them in at third at 9-8. They're a fast team with strong offensive weapons, like I said, but I think Tua is one of the most overrated quarterbacks, especially in big games. In games where the temperature's even mildly warm or cold, if it's anything below like 50 degrees, they're losing that game. It's almost guaranteed. They're like 2-20 in games where it's 50 degrees or less. So their defense has a ton of question marks. Fred brought that up as well. So I think that I don't have them. Let's just look at their last 6 games here. This is when they have to be winning games. This is an important point of the season. They can't lose their last 6 games. They have the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, the Niners, the Browns, and the Jets. That's their last 6 games. Do you trust them to beat the Jets in a primetime game where they have to win, do or die? Because I don't. I don't think that they're going to.
The Jets with Rodgers.
Depends on how good the Jets are doing. But just looking at it right now, I think the Jets, if I have Jets at my number 1, I don't see them beating them in a big game.
Especially with them having the Jets at the ass end of their season, too. And one of those games is going to be in New Jersey or New York, whatever. And cold. New York in the wintertime is freezing cold.
Both of those are going to be cold. It's literally December 8th and January 4th. Those are both going to be ice cold games.
I can see the Dolphins dropping one at Foxborough.
Easily. Oh yeah.
Say Rodgers is back 80%, I would agree. I'd put Jets in 1. That's why I have it at 11-6, 10-7, 10-7.
Yeah,
I think they're all right there.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They all could win it.
But Dolphins, if they start off high, I think that last 6 they can lose a couple because of how hard 6 is. But it all depends. they could go 0-6 for how
Yeah.
hard
Do
that
you-
schedule is.
Yeah.
I could see
Rough-
0-6.
rough-
I like the Packers more than them. I obviously like the Jets more than them because I did put the Jets above them. I like the Texans way more than them. I like the Niners way more than them. The Browns are a scary team, even though all their question marks that I have about them, which we'll get into in the next Division One, they are a scary team. And then the Jets again, but it's just I don't have any faith in that. So I have them at third in the division, and maybe I could be wrong. You guys got them number one. We'll see who's wrong here. But I do have Patriots coming in at last. Obvious reasons that we've all mentioned. They don't have any sort of direction yet. They're still, they have a young quarterback, better than Mac Jones, like I said. But I'm not seeing much potential, and I think 5+ wins would probably be a win in their book because just like the Cardinals last year, they weren't expected to do anything. Jonathan Gannon kind of willed them to their 4 or 5 wins, whatever they had, and it seemed like a win for them. Like they have a lot of potential coming into this year. Excitement. They were happy that they got those wins. So I think that 5+ wins would be a win for them, kind of like the Cardinals last year. So I have them at 5-12 at the bottom of the division.
All right. I think this is definitely going to be the most.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely going to be the most controversial division that we get.
I think I want you to start this one.
That one that we
This last one I struggled with big time. I think I switched them around like 3 or 4 times before I actually came to
the one with the East, like we said,
Census.
it's all going to go down to that last stretch on who's healthy.
Yeah.
I could see the Bills, even if they're healthy, they could sneak out and win that division. It's all going to come down to health of the quarterback, the receiving room for the Bills, and in my opinion, if Tua can play mediocre.
I think the receiving room's a little bit underrated for the Bills. I kind of like Curtis Samuel, especially since he has some.
I like
history
Curtis Samuel
with
and Keon Coleman.
I forgot that.
I'm still 50-50 on Shakir and MVS.
Yeah. MVS, yeah. I don't have any faith in him. He hasn't shown anything ever.
He's ass.
But I do like James Cook. I like James Cook, and I like Josh Allen, and I think that Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman are okay. So I could see them still taking the division, and I don't think their defense is bad by any means. And
it's going to depend on Josh Allen.
They're good.
If it's a close game, they're going to lose. Josh Allen's is going to lose the game. He's going to fumble. He's going to throw an interception. He's going to do something he does.
He hero
trying to
balls
be
too
the
much.
hero.
He hero balls too much. That's his issue.
But
I think those Jets games are going to be pretty close with that Jets defense. So that's why I have the Jets winning the division.
The Bills need balance, because honestly, I think that the Bills probably could have won a Super Bowl by now if they had balance. They don't have balance.
No.
Also, I don't like McDermott. I don't think McDermott's the best of coach for that offense and how that offense was built when he was there, or when he got there, and they had Stephon Diggs, and they had Josh Allen, and they had these pieces that they could have gone and maybe made a run for. McDermott, to me, is just he's not the guy that's going to answer their problems when it comes to scheming. I've never been a big McDermott fan.
Yeah, but I think you put that in Josh Allen's hands at that point.
Yeah.
But you got to give him help because
Now, if he's good, he don't need help. Look what Mahomes did.
If he's a top 3 quarterback,
he'll
still pull it out in this division.
Like everyone says, even arguably 2. He can win it. He can make the playoffs with this receiving core.
Yeah,
it's not
he can.
what ours.
I agree.
Yeah, and if
they have 2 good tight ends.
If there's ever
we have Rasheed Rice and Kelsey.
But I will say that they have more competition in their division.
Yeah.
But it don't matter about division when you got to beat everyone in the AFC.
And if there's any,
they're gonna have big games too because they're gonna be.
It does for record when you get to play the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers. 6 of your games. It does
we still split with
bring a little bit of a difference than when you have to play. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are bad in any way. Obviously, you guys still made it to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that it does affect your record and it does affect your chances to make the playoffs when you have to face the Jets, the Dolphins, and the.
Yeah. I totally get you. All right, are we ready for the North?
I'm as ready as I can be.
How
about we do this one more like the first one, where we kind of go around who we got at first?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right. So I got the Bengals taking the division at 12-5. They got a top 5 quarterback, probably the best chances to dethrone the Chiefs, like we said later on in the year. They should figure things out. I don't think they will dethrone the Chiefs, but as long as Burrow stays healthy, I think that this team wins the division.
I got the Ravens coming off Lamar's MVP year. I still got them because, like how we talked a little bit beforehand, like Derrick Henry and Lamar, that's going to be a scary backfield. Even though Derrick Henry's getting older, the read option is going to be way better than what they have in the past. I will take an older Derrick Henry over Gus Edwards in a heartbeat.
He's getting older. They lost some defensive pieces.
The only thing I'm worried about the Ravens is the loss of their offensive line. They lost 2 starters on the offensive line.
Yeah.
But they still have an improving Zay Flowers. He's going to learn a lot from what happened in the playoffs. And then you got Bateman still there. Like, they have a high-powered offense if it can be. If Lamar can stretch the field a little bit with his arm, they're still going to be, in my opinion, the number 2 seed. I have them at 12-5.
Well, they also have the top 3 tight end in the league, too. Mark Andrews is top
if he
3
can
tight
stay
end.
healthy.
Yeah.
It's not likely.
This team,
this
team is built on health.
Hip drop tackling.
Yeah, but this team is depending on health. If they can
Yes,
stay healthy,
for sure.
they're going to be the number 2 seed. I have them the same record.
They're relying on health with Lamar and Henry with a mediocre line. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing
A
with Lamar
30-year-old
is that he's even shown when his offensive line wasn't great, he can still make plays. That's
He can escape. He can escape. He's really fast. He's good.
And in the
but
five, in the last, like in the red zone, the last 5 yards, Derrick Henry's still at this age. Two people at minimum are going to take him down. He's still big.
Yeah.
I think if they can do their offense, do quick passes, run the ball, do a good read option, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. So I actually had the Browns winning the division. I had them winning. This is another. If they stay healthy and if the massage parlor Marauder can come back and actually play to a percentage where he was at when he was in Houston, then I think that this team is scary. I think that they are another team that has a top 5 defense for sure. I mean, Myles Garrett is as dominant as ever. He's probably one of the best pass rushers to ever play the game. They have a great secondary. Their line, I mean, that defense in general is just solid. They have a good offensive line. I know they've lost a few pieces here and there, but they're still their core offensive line is really good. I think the addition of Jerry Jeudy is going to be really helpful for them, especially with Amari Cooper hopefully taking him under his wing and maybe showing him the ropes a little bit because Judy's never really had a whole lot of guidance when he was in Denver for sure, outside of Sutton maybe. But
my name of the Browns is Nick Chubb.
And that's the other. Yeah. That's my other thing too. Is I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. I love that man ever since he was in Georgia. If he can come back and be healthy, I think that it's going to be the determining factor on who wins this division. Yeah. Even if he's not 100%, I think him and Jerome Ford splitting carries 60-40 or 70-30, whatever the case may be. Ford showed last year that he has that spark to be a guy who gets 15 to 16 carry a game guy. So yeah, I had the Browns winning. I like Stefanski. I think Stefanski's a good coach, and I think that if it's all depending on Chubb and Watson, kind of like with the Ravens, with what Trey said. It just comes down to how your quarterback play is, and if your superstar guy is going to come back 100% or not.
Okay.
So if you have the, never mind. We'll wait. I was going to ask him, but we'll wait. We're going to figure that out later. No, I was just going to say, if you have the Browns winning it, who do you have at the, in that division? Then, but we'll figure that out. Just because I don't know where the Bengals come in, where the Ravens come in, like that. That makes it tough.
All right, so I got Baltimore winning that division. I mean, everything's dependent on health, especially with a lot of teams in this division. But I think if healthy, if they can keep, I think that they got a little worse on the offensive line, but I mean they did add pieces. I think Roger Rosengarten is a good player. If you can keep Ronnie Staley healthy,
Rosengarten,
Washington's right tackle.
Yeah, right. So it's the right tackle.
Yeah,
he's really good.
They brought him in. You still got Ronnie Staley. If he can stay healthy, he's still a good tackle. And you got Tyler Linderbaum. So I mean, a good part of your line is still there. And then, like everybody says, you got Lamar, Derrick Henry. We know what Baltimore is. Come the regular season, and Baltimore's always a threat. Because of their run game, and their run game is going to be the same, if not better. And it's going to give teams fits, and they're going to win games in the regular season. Baltimore's problem is never the regular season. It's always what Lamar's health is come playoff time, and can Lamar win with his arm. You got Mark Andrews back last season with a freak injury. That's Lamar's go-to target. So you're going to have him back. You're going to have a better Zay Flowers. I think Bateman. I think they got big plans for Bateman. Hopefully he can put it together. And then I like Tess Walker personally.
Yeah,
I like Tess Walker.
I liked him. He's not going to get a lot of playing time this year.
He's not, but he's going to be able to stretch the field a little bit. And I think Lamar will get him a couple. But I like that offense. But we know what they are. They're going to run the football. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of teams are going to be able to stop it.
Yeah.
Now my biggest thing is, and I think that they'll still be fine. But losing McDonald, that's going to be a blow. So they're going to have to figure out their identity. But I think they still have the pieces. You got one of the best linebackers in the game, Roquan. Your defensive line is solid. You still got serviceable corners. I'm not as high on Marlon Humphrey as most people are, but he's still a good corner. And then you got a ascending safety in Kyle Hamilton. Chess piece. Yeah. So you still have the pieces there. It's not. I mean, you lost your coordinator and you lost Patrick Queen really off that defense, but you were able to bring
Geno
back
Stone.
And Geno Stone.
Yeah,
but you still got Williams back there too.
Oh yeah, Marcus Williams. Yeah.
And then their biggest thing was keeping Matabuke. That was big for him.
Also, Ajabo is going to be back this year too. David Ajabo was a guy they were high on when they drafted him.
Yeah,
and he got hurt and never got to play. I think Ajabo is going to be a guy that might be coming.
They're gonna have a lot of speed to be fast because I still like Owe as well. Yeah. They're fast on the edge, and I think did they bring back Kyle Van Noy too?
Yeah.
They did. They lost Clowney though.
They lost Clowney.
Okay. On the Titans. Mm-hmm. I mean, not Panthers.
Okay. So they still brought back Calvin Noy, and he's good in that system. I think that defense is going to be fine. It may take them a little bit to kind of, get in their groove. I don't know who their coordinator is now, but I mean that's still the same team. Put Derrick Henry in there. I think that they're going to be a tough beat in the regular season.
Oh yeah.
All right, just because I think we're pressed on time a little bit, I think this thing only lets you do for the free version up to an hour and 20 or something like that. Plus my computer's going to die. It's at like 28%, so we got to go a little bit quicker if we want to get to the games. But I do have the Ravens coming in at second.
Okay.
I'm a little down on them this year. I think they could go even further down that division. I think that, like we said, they lost a couple of key defensive pieces. They lost their defensive coordinator. I think it relies a little too much on Lamar and Henry in the run game when they can't keep a running back healthy ever. So, but they're also in the toughest division. I think the league makes, their schedule. I mean, this makes their schedule a little bit tougher. The division is probably one of the toughest in the league. I think all four of them, as he said, he's got the Browns winning. So, I mean, I think almost anybody could win this division just based off of the talented rosters that they all have. So, but it could be a down year. I think I still have them as second. I'm going to just go through the next two just to kind of speed it up a little bit. I'm a little bit higher up on the Steelers this year. I think the Steelers have a good roster overall. Now, again, another quarterback dilemma. Is Russ anything that he used to be? I don't know, but they won 10 games last year with one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league and one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I mean, they had no quarterback really. Russ, even if he's somewhat what he used to be, I think that he could still be considerably better than what they had last year. Another tough schedule though, just because they are one of the toughest divisions, and it's dependent on how good Russ still is. And then I do have the Browns coming in at last, just because too many question marks for me. Deshaun Watson, I have no idea if he's going to come in, how he's going to play. Chubb coming off a huge injury, and he's their key running back. I like Chubb a lot. We'll see how he comes back from the injury. They do have some good offensive weapons, really good defense. I think they did overperform just a little bit last year, but if Deshaun Watson is what he used to be, then we'll see how good they can actually be. But I do have them at 8 and 9 and at the bottom of the division. So, but they could surprise people easily.
I got the Bengals as my 2 seed. I'm still never going to doubt 80% Joe Burrow at the very minimum with Jamar Chase and that offense with T. Higgins. Yeah, they don't have a good running back situation right now, but I think the room of Chase Brown and Who was the other guy they got from the Colts?
Zach Moss.
Zach Moss. I think it's a
yeah.
pretty decent duo to have. Chase Brown, they said, is coming good out of camp. And they're still going to be a hard team to play. So I still have them in second. I have them going fifth and for the playoff rankings. My 1/3, I have the Steelers. Like you said, I still like the Steelers roster. I do think they start off kind of slow, and they end up benching rest for Justin Fields. I think if you have Fields, that offensive line that they have there already, and pair him up with at least George Pickens and Freiermuth down the middle, just like with Chicago, he used DJ Moore and
Cole Kmet.
He likes playing the tight end. He likes his number one receiver, and that's exactly what the Steelers have as well. And then Arthur Smith is the OC there. They're going to do a lot of running with Warren, Najee, and Fields. They could be a fun offense. But that division's so tough, it's hard to put them any higher than third for me. And then for fourth, I have the Browns. I have them at 8 and 9 as well. It's just a lot of question marks with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb, those two. If they come back healthy, I could see them, like you said, battling for the 2 seed, 1 seed maybe. But there's just too many question marks for me with those two. And like you said, the Flacco and Ford miracle run last year, you don't see that a lot.
No.
And if Deshaun Watson can be 75%, 70% of what he was for Houston, maybe. But I want to see a good Deshaun Watson before I can put them any higher.
So this is another division where I had it come down to like head-to-head matchups a lot too. So it was tiebreakers. So I had the Browns taking it, but I had the Ravens at 2. Like everyone's been saying, the Henry and Lamar mashup is going to be crazy, especially under Harbaugh's scheme. We know he likes to run the read option, and we know he likes to run the damn football. It's going to be. I think it's going to be tough. This is in my opinion, the toughest division in the NFL, outside of maybe the NFC West, maybe. But I like them. I just think that if the Browns come back healthy and Deshaun Watson comes back and plays 80% of what he was in Houston, that they'll edge him out. Then I had the Bengals at 3. I had them going. I didn't even have them having a winning season. Actually, I had them going 8 and 9, maybe 9 and 8, maybe. Joe Burrow with that hand injury that he had last year and his horrible medical staff and coaching staff making him play through it. They said that his hand will never be 100% again, and I think that is going to be a hit on his career. Not do I think it's going to completely hinder him and make him never make the playoffs again? No. But you also have a guy in T. Higgins who's on a contract year and has pretty much been open and honest about how he might not play if he doesn't get his money. And I get it, but at the same time I don't. If you want to make a playoff run, now's the time to do it because it's your last year on a contract with a team that is been a playoff team for the past 3 years. And then I had the Steelers going 7 and 10, 8 and 9, that area as well at the bottom of the league, or at the bottom of the division. I like the Fields ad. I like the Russ ad for.
Would that be Tomlin's first losing season in however long?
Yeah, it'll be Tomlin's first losing season in for what, like 15 years.
That's also why I should losing season.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, they had a terrible
tough.
quarterbacks last year, and he still won 10 games.
It was tough for me to do that. It's just that division is so tough.
It's the toughest division for sure.
Yeah, and it's all depending on how the Browns shape up. If the Browns don't come back with Chubb 100% and Watson being above average, then it could be Steelers at 3 and they have a winning season, and the Browns all the way at the bottom. It just depends. I like who they got. They definitely did better on their offensive line. Their defense is always going to be good. That's Tomlin's known for it. T.J. Watt's a dog. Minka Fitzpatrick's good. Highsmith is good. I mean, that defense, it's got a lot of players on it. And the addition of Patrick Queen, that defense is going to be good, and it's going to keep them in games. But I don't think that this is a year for them to be with the top dogs in that division.
You got 8 minutes.
Okay.
Go.
All right. So, second, I got the Browns, and it could go either way with 2 and 3. I got the Browns. I personally feel like we're gonna get a better Deshaun Watson. Now, please stay healthy so you can get in the groove. if he can get in the groove, I think he'll get back right. But I think now he's had some time back in the league after being out for however long, getting those massages and whatnot. But I think that, I mean, that's still a playoff team. And, I mean, they went that far with Joe Flacco in a busted-up offense. I mean, they lost everybody on that offensive line going into the playoffs. Yeah. And, I mean, we're still competitive. So, I mean, I think you add pieces, you make that offense a little better. Now, what you get out of Nick Chubb, I don't know. I like Jerome Ford personally. I think he's a still good running back, and especially behind that offensive line, he's gonna be. I think he'd be pretty decent.
Oh.
So I got them second, and I think their defense will win them games. But I got the Steelers at 3. I mean, that offense, I think that team's gonna be fun. I mean, like you guys said, they're a playoff team. I mean, that defense is legit. You add Patrick Queen there. I think that's huge. But that offense, I mean, they made some good changes now. However they go about the quarterback, they'll figure that out. But I mean, if you got Arthur Smith there, you're trying to run the football, and you don't draft Troy Fautenow, Mason McCormick, and Zach Frazier to just pass the football. And you got Broderick Jones there still.
Didn't they?
You still got Washington there at tight end.
I thought they got Tulisi Fuaga.
No, he went to the Saints.
Yeah.
So you got some feisty dudes up front, and I mean they completely revamped that line, and that was part of their problem too. And you got contract year Najee Harris, and I think Najee Harris had a big year. So I think that's going to be a really fun team. I think that they are going to shock a lot of people. Now, ultimately, their quarterback situation is what fell them in the end. But I think that they'll be competitive. But fourth, I got the Bengals. I'm not high on them. I'm not. I mean, all these are very close. I mean, this is a very tough division, so it's going to come down to tiebreakers. And I got the Steelers over them because, I mean, the Steelers just have their number in the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think they 2-0'd them last year. And I mean, they're just not good within the division, and they're going to have to win division games if they're going to be in one of those spots and try to make the playoffs. And I don't see that this year. I don't know what Burrow is going to be like. I mean, I like Burrow as a quarterback. But you're having to figure out a new scheme too. You lost your coordinator. You don't know how much of T. Higgins you're really going to get because, I mean, he's not going to want to get hurt going into a contract year because he's gone after this year. There's still questions behind Chase, and eventually he get his contract, but you're going to have to find balance within that offense as well, and I don't think that they're going to find that or at least utilize it like they should because, I mean, you got 3 6'8" mountains for tackles. You should want to run the football a good amount. But I don't see them doing that. And I think the biggest thing is I just don't see them stacking up with the teams in their division when it comes down to the wire, and I think that's what's going to knock them out.
Yeah, a couple things. I think T. Higgins is going to have to produce to get a contract, so he's going to have to put out some effort out there. If not, he's not going to get that contract he's looking for. And also, one of the games that they did play against the Steelers last year, they did 2-0 them. The Steelers did 2-0 the Bengals, but one of them was a 6-point difference. I think Joe Burrow can manage that 6-point difference in that game. I do expect them to split. I expect them to split the Steelers. I expect them to split probably the Ravens as well. But, yeah, just a couple points to throw out there. But we can get into our playoff rankings if you guys want to before we get into the games.
Yeah. All right.
So my number 1 seed, all of our number 1 seeds, Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't need to go in depth because we already did that.
Yeah.
Number 2, I got Texans.
Yep.
Number 3, this is where we'll be different. I have the Bengals in at number 3.
I had the Ravens.
I had the Browns.
Ravens too.
Number 4, I have the Jets.
Yep.
This is where we had the Dolphins.
Yes, we had the Dolphins.
Yes, where you guys have the Dolphins.
I have the Jets at 4.
At 5, I have the Bills.
So at 5, I had the Ravens because the split in that division.
I had 5 as the Bengals.
Nah, the Browns at 5.
6 Dolphins.
Yep, I got Dolphins at 6.
I had Colts.
Yeah, mine was Colts there too.
And then 7, I got Steelers.
7, I got Jets and Bills. Whoever
Yeah,
gets
that's
the 2 out of that
what mine
situation.
was too. Was between the Jets and Bills.
I had mine between the Colts and the Steelers.
Yeah, that's tough. I think the Colts were the other one that I had as well.
The AFC